All right, the sun is setting on summer and the temperatures are rising in the election season. Does all that mean it's too late to sell your collector or sports car or any car? Do we miss the boat? Is the window closing? We're going to try to answer that question and more. We have a special guest tonight. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. All right, here we are. Welcome to a brand new episode of Bid Nerds. My name is John Polnick. We are coming to you live from the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner Michael Deeb in San Francisco. And we have special guest Kelly Smith in studio. Not really in studio. Woo! He's in Idaho, which is just as good. Welcome to the show, Kelly. Great to have you on the show finally.
Welcome, Kelly. Guys. Great to be here. Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Right on.
Hey, JP,
yeah.
we talk about Kelly just about once a week. Like every other episode, we talk about a car, and whatever car that we find interesting on the show, chances are Kelly had one or has one or is building one or sold one. So now he's finally on the show and he gets to defend himself live and in person. So Kelly, welcome to the fire.
Oh no, what did I walk into?
Yeah, whenever I see a car on the list on our spreadsheet for cars that we're going to analyze, it's like, I got to look at the small person. Is that Kelly's? Or is that just like all right, guys, if you are new to the channel, welcome. Thanks for hanging out and joining the Nerd Herd. What we do on this channel is we analyze listings on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, PCAR Market, and more. And then we make predictions as to what we think the results will wind up being with those particular listings, and it's a lot of fun. You can play along with us. It's kind of like The Price is Right, only with cars that you like to look at on the internet. We always start out every episode by reconciling our predictions from the previous episode to see if it helps answer the top question of the day. Is it too late to sell your collector sports car on BAT because the summer's over? Let's get to that first car that we talked about on the last episode. What was that, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, what we're talking about is my good friend Max Monahan's old Lancia Fulvia 1.3S being sold by some guy named Kelly Smith out of Nampa, Idaho. Our car was on Bring a Trailer, running as an alumnus, and I believe a two-time alumnus, having been listed by Max and failing to sell in November of 2019, and then being listed by that outfit out of New England that sells all the Lotuses, I forget what they're called, in January of 22, where it also failed to sell, both times around $23,000 and just under $25,000 respectively. Kelly Smith acquired the car and enhanced the livery, doing a beautiful, basically taking a blue car that had white meatballs and these sort of off-white wheels, and then doing an authentic Lancia rally livery and really turning up the romance of this car. The car has no bumpers on it. It's got these beautiful driving lights. And JP, it was really fun to sort of spread the word with you about how these are these incredible little V4s and front wheel drive. And these cars are absolutely designed to go anywhere and go anywhere fun and fast. So Kelly enhanced the car, brought it back to market, ran it as an alumnus on Bring a Trailer, no reserve. JP, I opened the bidding at $22,000, and then you took the over at $23,000. Matt Weitzel from 914 Rubber was our third nerd and kind of joined us as a guest out of Portland, Oregon. Matt took the under at $21,000. Kelly, we'll just skip over you because we know you know what it sold for. It ran at no reserve. It got a lot of action, JP. 37 bids was the tally. Our car hammered at $22,000. I will thank you for the Yahtzee. But when it came to my bid, Kelly, I said 22, and you know, JP had kind of whispered to me what you were sort of thinking with the car. So when I gave my bid at 22, I whispered very softly, I think if it gets to that number, Kelly will likely be happy to take his money and move on from the car. So now I get to ask you in person, Kelly, were you surprised and or pleased with the result of your auction on Bring a Trailer?
I was surprised. You know, I was very forthright about having paid more for the car, but
yeah,
watching your guys' show regularly. I also knew it's a different time. The market's different. The market's, a bit soft. So truthfully, I didn't really know. I was surprised, but I was also happy at the same time. Turns out the gentleman who bought the car knew the car back when it was at Autosport, and he almost bought the car. So everybody's happy. I'm happy. He's happy. He bought it for cheaper than he was going to buy it for back then. So it worked out great.
Yeah. Yeah. And having come out of your collection, I'm sure you've gone over the car with a fine tooth comb, plus the livery. And let's face it, even livery is not cheap these days. There's a comma in every transaction you do when you order the decals and you apply the stuff. So he's got to be thrilled to have saved a buck and got a car that is now enhanced. I'd say just, considering the market, I would say the car is well sold. But when I consider the car and you consider what else is out there that would put that kind of smile on your face, I will also stay. And I'm a dyed-in-the-wool small Italian car fan. I was raised on Fiats and Alfas and Lancias and things like that with my dad. I think these cars are grossly undervalued. To me, to have this much fun in an Alfa GTV, you're going to pay 3 times the amount of money and maybe only go a teeny bit faster. And I don't know that the Alfa has as much character as this V4 front engine Lancia rally car. I mean, this is an absolute homologation special. And so if you bought basically the same experience from Alfa Romeo, 1600 cc's and late 60s for a Giulia GT, those cars are 60, 70 grand. And like I said, 3 times the money. I think this car is every bit as fun and winds up being a wonderful value for those who take the initiative to jump into that Lancia market and start looking for an Italian mechanic they trust. So I hate to see that car leave your collection, but I'm happy that you did well with it.
Michael, I have to say, congrats for the Yahtzee. You were far more accurate than I would have been. It's a niche car, obviously, but I agree with you. Really interesting. I'd love to get another one down the road. I think there's just so many cool things about this brand that a lot of people probably don't know. It's actually one of the first load-bearing monocoque manufacturers, the first to come with an electric starter, the first to debut a V4, among the first to be front-wheel drive, among the first to pioneer disc brakes. So it's a really cool brand. It's remarkable to me that's as niche as it is, but so it goes.
Yeah. So if the next, go ahead, JP. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say this is a good, I love again, I know you guys are talking about a lot of the technical stuff about this car, but really the presentation is everything and the big numbers. They say if you can't paint well, and here's a picture of the way it used to look. Look how teeny that little meatball was. They say if you can't paint well, paint big. And I think that this is kind of like, go big or go home, man. A bigger number brings bigger money. So, yeah, congrats, Kelly. I think you did really well in this market.
Thanks,
Kelly, when you decided to come on to Bid Nerds and talk about your Lancia, did you think JP was going to compliment you on the size of your meatballs?
I did not, and by the way, it was a cool surprise to see the car on the show because I did not, full disclosure, anybody who may be watching or even the buyer, I did not know that you guys were going to put it on the show, and it was really, really cool to see that night.
Well, you didn't tell me that it was even for sale. I'm like cruising along. I'm like, hey, that's Kelly's car. What the hell? So it was great to see it. Yeah, I was definitely watching. I was like because it was languishing for a while. For the first 6 days, there wasn't much action. I was like going, oh, geez. And it was no reserve. That was, before we move on from this car, I wanted to ask you about that. What made you decide everyone on the internet is talking about how it's a down market and everything's crazy and scary and crashing and collapsing. And, we're definitely, we do that all the time on this show. What made you say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go and run this no reserve. Who cares if there's a stock market crash on that day? I'll go and hold the bag. What inspired that?
Well, for first class problems, I'll tell you. The real reason is because I've got some other cars coming in, and I just, frankly, I don't have any space. So something had to go. There's 3 cars coming in. So that's the first part of it. The second part is a question I put back to you guys because you're way better at this than me. I honestly don't even know if you're better off going no reserve in terms of like driving the best results, or if you're better off setting a reserve and doing it that way. What do you think about that?
I certainly have an answer to that, and generally we see no reserve auctions get more attention because everyone in that auction, everyone paying attention to that auction, everyone bidding on that auction knows that there's a very real chance that they could be the buyer, and that's exciting, and that's one of the things that makes auctions so compelling. When there's a reserve looming out there and you don't know what it is, a lot of times people will simply not bid on a car because they're like, well, the reserve is probably really high, so there's really no chance, and I don't want to spend that much, so I'm not going to try to do a low bid. And what you want is you want people to bid, because someone that comes in looking at a listing saying, all right, I'm not going to pay a top number, I'm only interested at this lower number. Well, they make a bid, and now all of a sudden they're engaged, and they're not thinking about that top number anymore. Now they're just thinking in their head, okay, they get outbid by 250. They're like, oh, it's just another 250. I'll bid that 250. Now that delta is much smaller, and they don't realize it, but they say creep, 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 creep. And now they're way above where they originally thought because they're paying attention to those small increments. At least that's my opinion. Deeb, what do you think?
I'm in lockstep with you, JP. You described it perfectly. No reserve auctions keep all of your underbidders engaged because every time they add $100, they know they are committed to win and purchase the car. So you keep every one of your underbidders engaged in a no reserve auction. It is quantifiable, apples to apples, that they will bring more money. So I would say that if your car had a reserve on it, your bidding may not have broken 20 grand. So I think you did the right thing by running it as no reserve.
But the risk that's inherent, though, I mean, right now with the market being the way it is, and when is the market not really kind of crazy? When are things not nuts, right? But right now, you could have something pop up on Twitter 20 minutes before your auction's supposed to close, and now everyone's paying attention to their stock market ticker or the news, or God forbid, who the hell knows what's going to happen in the news cycle that only lasts a nanosecond. But like if the stock, we saw it a couple of weeks ago, we had a 1 or 2 day stock market crash and everybody freaked out. And if you're listing your car and something bad happens on that day, that one day, then you're left holding the bag where no one's paying attention. So that's the risk that you run, but I think it paid off for you. Final thoughts on that, Kelly, and we'll move on to the next car.
You guys, look, you're doing a free public service here. Look at this, educating all of us.
Education, yeah. It's a free education. You get what you paid for on Bid Nerds. All right, guys, what do you think of the results of this?
Welcome to JP's TED Talk.
Just don't get me started on inflation. What do you guys think of the results of this beautiful little front-wheel drive Italian car for just a little over 20 grand? Was that the best bang for the buck on BAT on Labor Day, or do you think someone's going to be stuck with a bucket of Italian bolts? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And we made some more predictions on the last episode. What was the next car, Michael Deeb?
Hey, Buddha, I see your Yahtzee out there. Well done on the Lancia, my friend. Okay, JP, we are going to circle right back to the 2011 Porsche 997.2 Carrera GTS Coupe with a 6-speed manual that we were visiting on PCAR Market. Our car was listed out of Brooklyn, New York, and was showing just 47,800 original miles. This car was born in Grand Prix white and came with white painted wheels from the factory. Looks like the seller, or maybe somebody before him, a previous owner, added what it looks to be like a GT3 wing, and the original deck lid is included in the sale. John, I was curious that if the white wheels and the stone guards and the wing might turn some people off, and PCAR Market is notorious for sort of failing to perform for cars that are basically no nonsense. This car to me had a tiny bit of nonsense, and so I just wondered if it would break 100 grand. Manual GTSs, 7.2 GTSs are hot in the secondary market. Really nice ones can bring upwards of $130,000. But betting against the platform and some of the non-original parts on this car, I started the bidding a little bit low. JP, I gave us a bid of $98,000. You took the under at $96,000. And Matt Weitzel, our third nerd from 914 Rubber up in Portland, Oregon, he took the over at $102,000. So, Kelly, I'm going to put you right on the spot. It's a very nice 7.2 GTS with a manual. It's an attractive colorway. They added the wing. It's on PCAR Market, which can be good things. Sometimes most of the time it's a bad thing. What do you think this car would have hammered for when it ran earlier this week?
It's a great question. I love these cars. I don't know what the GTS are really worth, but I'm going to say 2007.
No, this will be a little younger. It's going to be a 2011. It's a 7.2.
2011. I'm going to say 148.
Oh, that's really high. So he's all in at 148,000. I think if this car had a lot lower miles, Kelly's number would be in the hunt. But he did go over. Our car, JP, sold for $112,500 on 32 bids. JP, despite Kelly's overage, me, you, and Matt really weren't in the hunt. This car brought 10% more money than the range we were talking about. Well sold by PCAR Market. Every once in a while, JP, we hedge our bets against the platform, and then the platform doesn't screw it up. And this is a hot car in the secondary market. And my suspicions that the wheels and the wing might turn some people off proved to be unfounded, and PCAR Market got this guy what I would consider to be all the money. So, John, as we look at this result on PCAR, my first question to you is, if these assets and this listing were replicated on Bring a Trailer, would it have brought more money? Did the guy leave money on the table for his excellent car by being on PCAR, or did PCAR indeed bring every drop of cash that this guy could have hoped to squeeze out of this car in this market?
No, I think that if this car were on BAT, it would have brought a little bit more money. I don't know if a lot makes sense, but one of the things that I've seen Kelly do when he lists cars, regardless of whether or not he's selling them, Kelly, you're a big fan of the dry ice blasting. And this particular car really suffered from underside corrosion. This is an East Coast car, and it really did look like, I mean, it doesn't have rust or anything like that, but it did look like, sorry, I'm going through the pictures of some of the maintenance here to try to get to those pictures underneath the car. I think this car really would have benefited from a couple of $1,000s worth of attention to those details and straight up detailing. And if they had brought this car to BAT, having detailed it, having given it that ice blast, Kelly, you bid kind of high on this car, but you didn't get to see these pictures underneath like we did on the last episode. The other thing I want to mention too about this particular car and PCAR Market, I'm not going to bust on PCAR Market as much as I always do. That's another drinking game that everyone plays on this show. But this is the kind of car that is in such high demand. There just aren't very many of these. When it comes to the air-cooled cars, there's so many. There are just so many different varieties and types and specs and colors and configurations and outlaws and factory ones and stock ones and da-da-da-da. Whereas when it comes to the 997, there was a whole lot of first-gen 997s, but there are very, very few second-gen 997s because they came out when the big recession happened in 2008, right? And then on top of that, they introduced the PDK in this era. So subsequently, most of the 997.2s are equipped with a two-pedal transmission, a very good two-pedal transmission, but a two-pedal nonetheless. So to find a top-spec GTS with three pedals, a true six-speed manual .2 in about as good a configuration as you can get is a car that isn't, you're just not going to find one for sale at all anywhere. So when one does come up for sale, the people that are looking for them, the guys that have been waiting for them, are just like, yeah, fine, it's got some corrosion. Who cares? Who cares it's got the dumb wing? It comes with factory wing. It comes in the box. It even comes with the factory wheels. I'm good. I'll deal with that. It's worth it. Kelly, what do you think of the results? I know you own a 997.1.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I think these GTSs are great, even if I don't have a good understanding of what they're selling for right now. But What I do know is that normally when you see these, they're just in better shape. So I have not seen these photos, and I'm just really surprised that someone didn't, go all out to just prep this car for sale. And it just kind of looks like they rolled it out of the garage and took some photos of it, which, this is a pretty special car. So it's a weird way to play it, but okay.
Yeah, Kevin Boatman in the Nerd Herd, he says it looks to him like it was just driven and not cared for. And the thing is, that's easy to kind of remedy, right? Detail the car, spend a little bit of money on the car, and it will yield literally $10,000. If this guy had spent just a couple grand on the ice treatment and a really good detail, I think he could have got 10 grand more for it, even on this crappy platform, PCAR Market. If he had done that, if he bumped up and went over and put it on BAT, I think he could have gotten the $130 or maybe even more. Because GT3s, 997 GT3 .2s, those are almost $200,000. So the delta between a GTS and a GT3, that is commensurate with a $130,000, $140,000 price range versus a GT3 at, call it $180 to $200. But what do you guys think of the results of this 997 .2 GTS that was a little scrubby, but brought some pretty decent money on a scrubby platform? Do you think it would have brought more money if it were on BAT? Do you think it would have brought more money if they had gotten a detail? And do you think it was a good idea for the seller, at the very least, the one good thing that he did was sell it before the end of the summer? Yeah. Is it too late to sell a car like this? We've got another car that we made a prediction on the last episode. Let's see if that'll help us answer the question any better. What's the next car on the list, Michael Deep?
JP checking in on our 2011 BMW 1M that's on Cars and Bids. Our car is located in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and is showing 43,900 miles. Alpine white with a black leather interior and a 6-speed manual. These cars were only built for 1 year and are very collectible. JP, the market is soft on 1Ms at the moment. I don't know that we see a lot of cars like this on Doug DeMuro's site, but I don't think it's the wrong site to list it on. I just think you have to be realistic about what your expectations are. With that, and JP, I started the bidding at $51,000 and wound up being the high bidder. JP, you took the under at $49,000, and Matt Weitzel from 914 Rubber joined us on the last show as third nerd out of Portland, Oregon, and he took the under beneath you at $48,000. So, Kelly, we have 3 bids of 51, 49, and 48 on our fair mileage, fair condition BMW 1M on Doug DeMuro's Cars and Bid site. What do you think this car would have hammered for just the other day?
And Kelly, here's all the Nerd Herd numbers there too. The Nerd Herd was a lot more optimistic on this car than most of us were on the panel.
Got it. I think these are neat cars, and I just quickly saw you flashing the screen. I think it said "You Drive Auto." Did I catch that? Yeah, I see the background anyway where those photos were taken. So yeah. So this dealer, Todd, he usually does a great job sourcing really good cars. Typically, they come out of collectors' garages, and he sells these on consignment. I bought a car from Todd myself one time. I don't know what this car sold for, but he tends to have really good cars. But it's, as we all know, kind of a strange time in the market right now. So I'm going to say 44.2.
All right. Kelly's going to take the under beneath Matt Weitzel. JP, it's very interesting results here. We talk about is it over? Is it too late? Our car hammered for $51,611, where it failed to sell on 30 bids. JP, my bid was 51, and I proved or bore out to be the high man. I think this guy should have accepted the bid of $51,611. Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't. You're right. He should have taken the money. It's too late. He's stuck with this car. I think the shine is off of the 1M. You talked about it a little bit on the last episode. The advent of the 2 Series and all the special M versions of that are available right now. That's a better car for about the same or less money. I mentioned on the last episode, for 50 grand, I'd rather have 2 E92 M3s, one convertible and one hardtop, and and fill 2 spots in the garage for 2 cars that are almost as good as this car, and frankly, I think look better. This car has a weird style to it. I love that it exists, that it reminds us of the old E30 M3. That's what everyone loves about this car. But with the new 2 Series, it's cannibalized by their own company. Kelly, what do you think of the results of this thing?
I just don't know enough about these BMWs, especially the 1M. But, like I said, I do know that they tend to get in really nice, clean cars. So, be interesting to see what they do with it now.
Yeah, I mean, if they're and that's interesting that you know them as a seller. Usually good sellers, if they've got good inventory and they're like, well, all right, it didn't reach what we wanted it to on the auction site, at least it's a dealership that already has presumably customers coming and going, so they can still present this car and bring it to market in a more traditional fashion, so the car isn't burnt. If this was a private owner and they own this car and it doesn't reach that number, they're kind of stuck with it, because now what do you do? Do you go put it on Facebook Marketplace or something? I mean, it's pretty tough to sell cars like this these days, and there's a lot going on out there right now that's making it even more scary to buy even nice cars and newer cars and modern cars from private sellers. I don't know if you guys have heard how prevalent these mileage gizmos are. They've got a gizmo now that you can plug into the back of your odometer and it'll stop the odometer. And they're applying these to cars that have digital. It's a big problem for the guys that are trying to buy like Lamborghini Huracans and stuff like that, because dudes will go out and rent their exotic cars for a year or two, put 30,000 miles on them, put one of these mileage blocker gizmos on it, and then when people go to buy the car, I'm buying a Huracan with 8,000 miles on it or 5,000 miles on it, and then they take it to get serviced and they plug it in the computer, and the computer reconciles the ECU with the odometer, and then if there was any warranty left, the manufacturer goes, blacklist, sorry. Check out Lucky Lopez's channel over there. He's a local Vegas YouTuber. He just did a big bit about that. So it's getting scarier and scarier out there. So watch yourself when you're buying something. Make sure you check your P's and Q's, dot your I's, cross your T's, and protect yourself, guys. All right. Is it too late to sell your collector car, your classic car, your sports car? Is the lowering temperatures because of winter and rising temperatures because of the political climate, is that going to affect the prices of cars from here on out for the rest of the year? We are going to take a look at some listings and analyze them in order to see if we can't answer that question. But first, we've got a message from our sponsor, so stick around. We'll be right back. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas.
You could win this Lotus Emira from Vegas Auto Gallery at Vegas Auto Fest. Hi, I'm Rami from The Rami Show on YouTube, and I've teamed up with Vegas Auto Gallery to give anyone who goes to Vegas Auto Fest a chance to win this car. Get your tickets at vegasautofest.com and come to Red Rock Country Club Saturday, September 21st to win.
Spectator tickets are just $20 and kids under 16 are free. So get your tickets now for a chance to win this new Lotus Emira.
From Vegas Auto Gallery, Vegas Auto Fest, the drivers are coming.
Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, guys, I opened up a can of worms with this fraud thing. Everyone's talking about the mileage blocker. That's fraud. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what that is. That's fraud. If you didn't catch us before the break, there are a lot of sellers out there that are trying to pull off some scams, guys. So protect yourself. we should do our own episode about this too, because I know there are companies that are generating genuine VIN numbers, and they're making VIN plates, and they're printing freaking titles that hold up because they're real VIN numbers, and you the only way to check, you check the Carfax and it'll show, yeah, this is a real car. The only way to know that it's not is to realize, well, this is a 2-year-old car and it's never been registered anywhere. So the big recommendation nowadays is if you're buying a car from a private owner, bring it to the dealership and pay them to hook it up to their computer to make sure that it's a legit car. Now that's with a modern car. God knows what you can do about the old ones. So yeah, just again, protect yourself. All right, we're asking the big question today is it too late to cash in on your collector car and your sports car on BAT or Bring a Trailer or PCAR Market? There's a lot going on right now, a lot of downward pressure on people to sell their people are just freaking out. Everything's going on. People are freaking out about the election. People are freaking out about the economy. And that makes people look at the things that they have and go, all right, is it time to get rid of this car while I still can? Or did you miss the window? Now that summer's over, is it too late? You have to wait till next spring or summer. Let's get right to it. Let's make some predictions on some new cars that we've got on the list. What's the first car on the list, Michael D?
All right, JP, our poster card tonight is a 2018 Porsche 911 GT2 RS with a Visoc package. Our car is listed on Bring a Trailer out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and showing just 2,900 miles. JP, the Visoc package is just $18,000, but when you add the magnesium wheels for like another $12,000, I think you're all in. I can't remember, but I think between the two packages, it's around $31,000 to make your GT2 RS look like the car we have here. JP, when I was at Gaudin, we took one in used that had a couple of miles on it. Thus, it was okay to take people for a test drive in that car. And I was lucky enough to have driven one of these on such an occasion. And I will tell you, JP, although I much prefer to drive a car with a manual transmission and row my own gears, this car's performance envelope was so incredible that it absolutely ruined me. I went to bed 12 hours later and I was still smiling. This car is insane for how fast and how controlled. I would coin it as dangerous because it's so good, it'll make mere mortal drivers think that they're really good, and they're not. This car could theoretically get you in a lot of trouble, but I loved it. I loved every second of that drive. And with the means, I would absolutely take one. I don't know that I would take one like this, JP. Go ahead and miss me with the can red. If you're a Porsche guy, you'll get that reference. This bright red Alcantara interior, to me, is hideous. Ordering a car with that, I think you really polarize your secondary market with something so niche like that bright red interior. And the other thing, JP, this car, despite the low miles, this car has had 4 previous owners. As you start to get into like the real top of the market collector money, people do look at ownership history. If this same car had one owner, I would say it'd be worth a little bit more. How to quantify that, I don't know. It's just I'm talking from experience. People start to freak out when they see a long ownership history, and that's what we have here on the Carfax report. So JP, low miles will drive the value here. Let's come back to me and we'll talk about numbers. I have just a few things to share before we start to break it down. Absolutely a nice car. It looks to be in very good condition. But like I said, a couple of things I think might hold this one back: the interior, the ownership history. Low miles will definitely keep it towards the top of the market. And these cars have been strong since they sold. These cars have almost always traded for over MSRP. So JP, you selected this car. This will be a great example for our question of the day. Is it too late? Do you think this guy should have run it no reserve just to make sure he gets off it before the market hits rock bottom?
Yeah, you're asking a lot of questions there. I mean, first of all, these cars are insane. I, too, have had the good fortune of being able to drive one in anger. But I don't know if I have the same opinion of the car. I mean, I love it. It's great. But I found it to be kind of numb. If you recall our good friend and friend of the show, Rami Mirza, namesake of our studio, he owned both. He had the 991 GT2 RS, and he also had a 997 GT2 RS at the same time for a while. And we took both of those cars out in the desert. And, you know, if anyone's ever driven with Rami, you know, driving the 997 version only came with 3 pedals. It was only a manual car. So that car was flippin' terrifying. Whereas this thing, you know, you're absolutely right. It was not unlike driving an electric car. You're going through the paddles and you've got your foot in it, and there's no like transfer from one axle to the other. Whereas with a 3-pedal car and you're out in a straight line, you can see 100 miles in any direction, perfect visibility, and you're rowing through the gears. And every time you hit that clutch, even if you can just go click, because it was a short shifter on the 997 version, it's just click, click, click. But even then, you still have that forward back momentum that shifts the weight on the axles, which is what's dangerous at 150, 180 and plus miles per hour. I'm embarrassed to say, when I was driving the 991 version following Rami, he had taken a right and took off, and my passenger was like, "Go get him!" So off we went. I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm in a GT2 RS. Click, 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 and it was just reeling him in. Every time he shifted, I got a whole car length on him. And finally, when I felt like, okay, my nose is ahead of him, that's when I lifted and looked down. In that nanosecond, when you lift, you know you're slowing down a couple miles an hour. In that split second from looking at the road to looking down at my dashboard, I was still going 203 miles an hour. That was not on purpose. That was not something that I'm not proud of that. I'm embarrassed by it. That was effing stupid. This was a public road. I literally thought I was going maybe 130 or 140. You have no sense of the just jet fighter speed in that car. Whereas the 997 version, you're like, we're gonna die! Ah! You know, but the 991, I could have had a cup of tea and put my pinkies out with that car. Kelly, you've driven a lot of fast cars. You own cars that are absurdly fast. Have you ever been behind the wheel of one of these crazy monstrosities?
Well, I will say this. I have driven with Rami, and I attest to...
the red mist, as it's called. Yes, we call it.
Yeah. He could charge for adventure rides. Like, if you wanted this passenger, he'd probably collect a pile of money. He's fun. I've never driven a GT2. I'd love to. And I'm sure they're ridiculous. You know, I also know these are not cheap either. So if you get out of whack, it's a very expensive mistake. But yeah, I'd love to drive one. I don't know. You know, it's interesting. I'd almost rather have the 997 probably, just based on what you're saying, John.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And the 997s bring 50% more money. They're in the 600,000 and up range today.
Crazy.
So yeah, they bring crazy good money.
And those have fluctuated a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, these have stayed in and around that 400 range. And most of them stick at around 300. So they still bring, 30% over MSRP. But these cars, when I did my drive, I'm around the dealership, so I was making very spirited turns, and I'll leave it at that because I work for a parent company. I had to be responsible. But
all right, Deep, what's this going to bring? Let's get to some numbers here.
The side-to-side transition of these cars is thrilling. JP, our car is currently listed at $335,000, and that comes to us by way of a respectable 23 bids, especially when you consider our car does not close for another 2 days. So this car's got some room to go. It is also worth noting that number, 335,000 JP, is exactly the MSRP on this car. So when it was new, it cost 335. It's currently bid to 335. John, I think the low mileage on this will drive the value up close to 400,000. But in today's soft market and with the plethora of GT2s that are in the secondary market, I will say, as a bid nerd, that the cars that are breaking 400 grand are basically paint to sample Weissach models. If you don't have an unusual color, I don't think you're going to see a 4 in front of it. And despite this car having less than 3,000 miles and a Visoc package, I think it's going to stay in the park. So my bid, JP, will be $396,991. Where is your bid, John?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are hurting the potential for this listing. The presentation is absolutely horrible. These are just ridiculously poor photos. I don't know what the hell this seller was thinking. I don't know what the hell BAT is thinking, letting this guy run this listing with these kind of photos. I mean, BAT, I know it's hard to control the sellers. I know it's hard to get them to go out and give you good assets to try to sell their cars. But come on, man, you're trying to get $400,000+ for your car, and you're taking photos with your stupid iPhone vertically. You don't have any. I mean, this is what the hell, man? Spend a little money and present the car. You'll make the money back. I think this guy's in trouble. I think black is a dull color for most Porsche buyers that are spending the big money. It's my preferred color. I love the way this car looks in general. That red interior does nothing for me. The red, but honestly, I don't know if I've ever seen one that wasn't that color interior. It seems like everyone I ever see has this jet ski style, like red, goofy looking interior. Or like if the car's green, as all green everywhere. It's just way too much color. I've never seen one that has just like a nice all black interior. So yeah, this car, go ahead, Deep. You were going to say?
The GT2 RS, the default interior was the black and red. So you would have to option out of that if you wanted anything else, all leather or a different colorway. You'd have to tick a bunch of interior boxes. That was the default standard interior on the cars, regardless of exterior color.
Yeah. And remember, like, these cars aren't numbered. When this car came out, they were, things were getting pretty nuts and people were paying a lot of money over. And then there was a shortage of them because that barge that was bringing a bunch of them across the Atlantic sank, presumably because a bunch of EV cars caught fire and sunk a huge shipping barge that lost, I don't know, like what, 1,000 cars, Vagcom cars, mostly Volkswagens and Passats and Atlases or something like that. But there were a lot of really nice Porsches that went to the bottom of the ocean, sadly. So it was kind of these cars were in high demand. People wanted them. They were supposed to be delivered, and then they had to make up for X amount of cars that couldn't be delivered that were already purchased. So that drove the demand even higher for a while. But those days are gone. That's all over. These cars aren't numbered. They are kind of special. But I think for $400,000, I think I'd rather go get a new GT3 RS. I think that car is more special right now. I don't know if I would with my money, but I think that the kind of person that wants to buy something like this wants the latest, greatest whiz-bang thing. And let's face it, they're going to be announcing a GT2 RS in the 992 at some point sooner than later, and that's going to be the next big latest whiz-bang thing. So all that said, what was your number, Deeb? It was 380, 390?
396,991.
All right, I will go 390,991 and pass it off to Kelly. What do you think this is going to bring?
I think that for being such a special car, it's weird because people can see that there's a lot of comparables that they can sort of figure out, what it might be like if they just walked into one of the many dealers selling these cars and just asked for the requisite discount. So there's that. So you have some sense, just based on the amount of cars in the market that are always for sale for these cars. I also agree with you that it's really strange. Just hire a professional photographer when you have a car like this. It's odd to shoot it like this. That probably isn't going to help it. So because of that, I think probably the real world price, my guess is going to be, I'm going to say 389.
Wow.
Taking the under.
I see. Okay.
Very good. That's how that feels, JP.
Shrewd bid.
Very good bid, Kelly. Very good.
All right, guys. Is this car going to bring the frunk money that'll make Deeb giggle a little bit, or is it going to stall out? because it's just too late to sell something like this in the season. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Before we get to the next car, I want to shout out the Nerd Herd tonight. You guys are rocking it. Thank you for hanging out with us. You know we do this show for you, and we love having you here. It's great to see your comments. I'm trying to get as many of them up on the screen as I possibly can, so bear with me. Hey, how many of you guys are coming to Vegas Auto Fest? I know a lot of folks from the Spud Syndicate are coming down. That's from Idaho. Kelly, are you coming down to Vegas Auto Fest?
I don't know, John. It's a good question. Always seems like a great show. I've never been, believe it or not.
Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Get in the caravan with the rest of the Spud Syndicate and come on down. It's only like a 10-hour drive. Come on, man. Come on.
Gotta make it happen.
Let's make it happen. All right, you guys in Idaho, the Spud Syndicate have to really step it up and go over to Kelly's house and pick it. Get the signs, and Kelly goes to Auto Fest. Kelly goes to Auto Fest. And, I know your wife will be like, get out of here. Go to them. Make them go away. All right, guys, let's move on to the next car. What do we got? Is it too late to sell your classic collectible sports car? What's the car? To answer that question, Michael Lee.
JP, I picked this car over a week ago. This is a 1974 Datsun 260Z with a 4-speed. This car is an alumni bring-a-trailer listing out of Washington, District of Columbia. The car is showing 17,000 miles, but its true mileage unknown. JP, just feast your eyes on that metallic green paint that is called leaf green. That is an original 260 color. This car was born in that color. Our seller bought the car on Bring a Trailer back in October of 2021. And JP, at that time, the car was listed out of Oxnard, California, and he won the car on BAT for $26,000. Since he's owned the car, he has subsequently repainted the car, bought new Solex carburetors for it, put the original style 14-inch wheel covers on the Steelies, and then retufted the interior. I think he kept the vinyl, but rebolstered the seats with new foam and stuff like that. And it's, he's kind of gone through like the clutch and the suspension and the brakes and all the fluids. And so he's just essentially refurbished this car for you and has brought it back to market. JP, you may remember when I was at Godden, we had a 914-6 that was painted metallic green. And while we had the car, Porsche re-released that color, calling it Python green. And I would say that this leaf green by Datsun is almost an exact replica of Porsche's Python green, which is a heritage color because it used to be called medium green metallic, and it was an original 914 color. So I am digging the colorway on this car. I am not in the market for a green car, but if this landed on my lap, I would absolutely rock it. I am not a Z fan, but I am just absolutely digging this car. A couple things to consider. 260Zs were built for 1 year, 1974. They came in either a 2+2 or a 2-seat configuration. This is a 2-seat configuration, and we'll come back to that when we talk about numbers. And then some cars have the American thick, big, ugly bumpers, and some cars are born with what they call the early small bumpers, and I'm 99% sure that these are the early small bumpers. So besides the rare colorway, the refurbishment, it's the configuration of the interior and the bumpers that are going to drive the value of this car. I think this guy's got a lot going for him. It's a shame the current bid is not representative of my hunch that he will do really well with this car, especially when you consider what he paid for it. So JP, I send it over to you. Any love for the 260Z, and what do you think of this colorway?
Yeah, this definitely reminds me of childhood. I mean, everything in the 70s was this color. My living room growing up was this color. The carpet, the drapes, the couches. It was all the van that my parents had, a Dodge panel van, was pretty much this same kind of, different shades of puke green. And but I like this car. I've never driven one, or if I have, I don't remember it. I know that the 260 is kind of poo-pooed. People don't really like them. They're not really sought after, but I don't know. I mean, I think it has a really neat classic look, and if ever there were a car to have the potential to kind of like Kelly's car, really, it's something that you don't really think of the Lancia as something that you want until you see a picture of it. I think this car would do really well with a livery, with a big meatball, and maybe get rid of those original hubcaps and maybe put something more aggressive on there. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. Kelly, what do you think of this little green car?
I did not realize they were only made for 1 year. That's interesting. I love the color.
Yeah.
Absolutely love the color. And I love, it's a really cool car. I understand that there's a following of people that just absolutely love these old Datsuns. For whatever reason, I was never one of those people, but I still appreciate it. The interior and the exterior look really, really clean. It's neat. Looks like somebody gave this car a lot of love.
All right, Deeb, what's it going to bring?
All right, JP. So despite all the, the love and the history for Z's, this car does have some ancient tech. Discs in the front, drums in the back, 4-speed manual, and it's a single cam motor. These cars never really made great horsepower, but it wasn't about the power. It was about the handling and about the value. JP, I looked at these pictures. I saved this car. I really wanted to run it tonight. And then I'm doing a deep dive on the value, and I'm looking at where it's at. I really think this car should be like a record breaker, pushing $40,000 and $60,000. I look at the current price. Our car is currently bid to just $18,000, and I continue with the internal dialogue that I'm trying to create a narrative like, oh, well, there must be a lot of bidders and they're just waiting to start throwing numbers at it as it closes. John, our car is at $18,000 on just 4 bids. Crickets! What is going on? Our car closes tomorrow. What are they waiting for? In my opinion, JP, I would say that this car honestly should be somewhere between $45,000 and $60,000, and I'm not even sure he's going to get his money back at $26,000. So, John, it pains me to bid here somewhere between what I intellectually think the value of this car should be based on what's here, the original color, the configuration, the bumpers, and the condition, and what the tea leaves are showing at just $18,000. So I wanted to bid this car above $45,000. I'm not. I'm going to land it somewhere in the middle. I'm sort of hedging my bet at $36,260. But I need this car to double in value tomorrow when it closes. And all of the bidders had to come out of the woodwork. And if they do, JP, they should blow my number out of the water. I would not be the least bit surprised if this car goes crazy and is bid up over $65,000. It could even push $80,000. I don't know when we've ever seen a 260 this nice and this rare a shade. But right now, I'm not confident in my 36 because it's double where it's currently at. So, JP, that's a mouthful, but $36,260 to you. What is your bid?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to think that it'll rally on the last day. I mean, that's typically what happens on BAT. I mean, especially with air-cooled Porsches and classic cars like that. So, I mean, I think it really does represent a great opportunity to get into something that is truly classic and has the look, but isn't like air-cooled 911 money. I think that's been the 240Z's appeal for the last couple of years. And I would the thing is, this car is just screaming to be modded. Bring it, bring the height down, change the bumpers, change the wheels, like we already said, throw a livery on it. And now all of a sudden you've got something that's really a big showstopper. I want to say that Adam Carolla in his studio in Hollywood there, he has a room, and by the way, I wanted to let everybody know that I just released the first episode of Porsche Road Trip on the Cars Unknown Fascination YouTube channel. That is the show that was on Pluto TV a couple of years ago. We finally have full ownership of the show back, and so we're putting it up on YouTube, and the first episode just went out, and we've already gotten a great response from a lot of people, and I really appreciate you guys watching it. Woohoo! and the great comments from everyone, so thank you for that. But yeah, back to Adam Carolla, who was in the show. When we were doing his interview, he's got a room full of insanely valuable race cars, historical race cars, cars that were owned by Paul Newman, that kind of stuff, right? All over the place. And then up on this pedestal, he has, I want to say it's a 260Z, but it's a 260 race car, and it's got this really cool livery on it. And one of the things that he likes to do to F with people is when they walk in, this is his way of testing if they're true car people or not. He'll say, so if you could have any car or which car in this room do you like the most? And everyone looks around and sees all the beat up race cars, and then they see this beautiful 260 with this cool livery on this pedestal. They're like, oh, that one. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, well, that one's worth $2 million. That one's worth $1.5 million. That one's worth $4 million. And the car that you just pointed out is maybe 30 grand. And everyone's like, what? And I'm just like, when he asked me that question, I'm like, I don't know what all these race cars are, and I know that they're worth more, but I have no idea. But I do like the Z car sitting on the pedestal, and then he gave me the spiel because I kind of split the difference. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to think less of you now because you kind of. Anyways, what do I think this car is going to bring? I'll give it $30,000. I really don't know. I'd like to see it get more. Kelly, what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough to say, but I have a feeling he probably won't get his money all out of this car by the time he factors in time and parts. So I have a feeling it's probably going to close roughly around where he bought it, but I'll give him 28.
28. Yeah, it's not looking good, JP, just based on 4 bids and the number below 20. But I think this example should be worth all the money and maybe be looking at trying to push something close to a high watermark over the last couple of years. So we will see if the Datsun collectors are hiding and waiting until the final hour to show their hand. It'll be a very interesting close if they do, because this one, based on where I think it should go, it should be closing. It should take this car 40 minutes to close. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like if it only brings 20 something and sells, does that answer the question that it's too late? You should have done this 2, 3, 6 months ago, or is it just like that's just what these are worth? That's what they've been. Is that a high number at $30,000? I don't know. Let us know what you guys think this little 260Z will bring, and let's move on to see if we can continue to try to answer that question. Is it too late to sell your collector classic sports car on BAT? What's the next one on the list?
All right, JP, we tend to stay away from these cars because the secondary market for Cobra replicas is very confusing. But we are going to walk that plank and try to help some people make sense of the market. What we're looking at that is currently on Bring a Trailer is a Superformance Mark III Cobra replica. Our car has a 5-speed manual transmission and is powered by, they say it's 418 powered. So what they're saying is it is a stroked Windsor. That means the car was born as one of Ford's 351 Windsor small blocks, and it has been stroked to 418 cc's, where it'll make a lot more power. My guessing is this car is probably putting down close to 400 horsepower to the ground. The wheels look like the original 15-inch Halabrand knockoffs, but these cars are modern-sized 17s. And then it's got sway bars and Willwood multi-piston calipers, and of course a Holley carburetor and MSD ignition to make the car a little bit easier to live with. JP, the thing about these cars is this. At any given moment, there are a ton of them in the secondary market, and now is no exception. So despite whatever these cars cost to be brand new, once this car gets some scrapes and scratches and is driven and the oil is changed and the brakes are replaced and some different tires are put on or whatever the case may be, this becomes a used car, and I'm guessing is worth less than 50% of its original cost. And there is no shortage of them in the secondary market. So despite this car looking cool in the photos, it is just a used piece of tin, of which there are several more just like it in the secondary market. And we'll touch on that when we come back to me and talk about values. But John, I hand back to you Superformance's version of Ford's 427 Cobra. This does not have a 427 motor. It's probably not aluminum bodied, and it wasn't made by Ford or Cobra. So John, what do you think of this car? It's the end of summer. The market is soft, and the question is it too late? I'll go ahead and I'll hand it back to you and say absolutely too late. If you want to sell a car like this, you got to do it and get maximum money for it. you got to do it in the spring, and I would advise avoiding a election year. Where are you at, JP?
Yeah, anyone who is interested in one of these was interested in it in April, not in the beginning of September. Most of the boomers that want something like this are getting ready to bundle up and pack it away. And one of the favorite, like that boomer type that owns something like this, they're the guy that likes storing their car for the winter. It's like, it's September. The leaves are starting to show color. We better drain the oil and drain the tank and get it up on blocks and make sure the tires are stored correctly so they don't get flat spots. I mean, that's part of the hobby. That's part of the appeal of owning. The guys that own these cars don't drive them. They do stuff like that. I don't know. I'm rambling here a little bit. I've always loved the general shape of this car, the swooping lines, the haunched hips, that big gaping open air intake in the front for the radiator. It just screams classic Ferrari, but then you hit that big square windshield and nothing just screams bad American sensibilities. It just completely ruins the lines of the car. Looks like an old MG of some sort mashed together with a Ferrari. And then that goofy, roll bar hoop, which I suppose is probably necessary, but and might save your life. Big deal. But it just ruins everything about this car. I have seen a couple of these that just have those the little race windshields that kind of make them a speedster. It's just like a little blip kind of thing. And the cars look 100 times better. But that square windshield just kills me. Kelly, what do you think of these cars?
I think you said a lot of it. There was one thing, the photos were going by really quickly, and one of the things I thought that I saw was, the wheels were kind of dirty on one of those close-ups when it was kind of going by, and I agree with you, John, that, a lot of people like to sort of put these in their car and keep them clean and pristine and just kind of sit back in their chair inside their garage with their Michelob Ultra and just admire it. And they just polish the heck out of these.
Yeah, hold on. I got to cut you off. When you're at the car show, there's a dude sitting next to it in a lawn chair and a placard with pictures of everything that he's cleaned on the car. Sorry, Kelly. Please continue.
No, exactly. And this one, to me, I didn't look that close to it. It just doesn't look like someone just polished the heck out of it. Will that hurt it? I don't know. The time of year, to your point, probably will hurt it more. But it's. I don't know.
I mean, let's face it. This car has zero utility. I'll go back to it. Stand
you see
by
some
here.
of those photos there? Like it kind of looks kind of nicked up a bit. See,
JP, go to photo 97, and in photo 97, Kelly, you very astutely saw a dirty wheel. The dirt is from rubber balls, and the knockoff is safety wired to one of the spokes of the wheel, which means this car has been professionally raced or autocrossed. So this car has had a rough life, and he did nothing to hide that from the photos.
Exactly.
Hold on. Wait, time out. Professionally raced BS, number one. Number two, wiring the knockoff to the wheel is something that a race car driver would do, but there's no way this car was raced. That's also something that some guy who wants the car to look like a race car would do, but has never seen a race in its life. It looks like it's got, what is it? It's like the clear bra, but not like it's like they put clear pieces of plastic all over it, but they didn't get a pattern made specifically for the front of the car. It's just like a hodgepodge of them or something like that. I don't know. This car is just a mess. Dee, do you think it's going to bring any money? I mean, it doesn't even have a roof, for crying out loud.
All right, JP. According to Classic.com, when we talk about Shelby Cobra replicas, the average selling price in the secondary market is just under $61,000. According to Classic.com, there are currently 142 different Shelby Cobra replicas listed for sale in the secondary market today. That's just what they can find. I'm guessing the real number is probably over 200. But Factory 5 and Autocraft and Superformance and Backdraft Racing and Everett Morrison, and AC Cobra replica are just to name a few. Our car is a Superformance Mark III, but that means there's also Mark 1s, Mark 2s, and Mark 4s out there. So there are no shortage of how you want the car: color, motor, configuration, materials, and quality. And it's all because real Cobras are all basically $1 million or more. So JP, I think this car has had a rough life. Our car is currently sitting at $40,000. And that is brought to you on just one bid, and it closes in 2 days. JP, the average selling price for these cars is about 60 grand. But when we look at the end of the season, we look at an election year, we're heading into winter, which is also part of the end of the season thing. I don't think there's anything on this car that makes it special. It doesn't have an original motor. The safety wiring to me tells me this car has been raced. Even as a amateur in grassroots, I think this car has had a rough life. And if you budget approximately 60 grand to pick up a Cobra, I think if you've got 50 to 60 in your pocket, you're waiting for a nicer car that's had an easier life to come around. This car has a bid of $40,000 on one bid. John, I'm going to say it doesn't get another bid. I'm going to say that's the final bid, and I doubt it sells for that number. But I don't think anybody's gonna. I wouldn't bid over 40 grand for this car, so I don't think anybody else will. I'm gonna say it stays at 40, and it fails to sell at that number.
Wait, so you're saying it doesn't get another bid?
Right, 40 grand and it FTSs.
All right. Yeah, FTS seems highly likely. I think it'll get a couple more bids, but I don't think a whole lot. It's at 40 now, so I'll go up to 43 and hand it off to Kelly. But I do think it FTSs. I just think that, and like I give everybody crap. I say it's a boomer car or whatever. But look, there are a lot of great boomers out there that have much better taste. There's a certain type of boomer that I'm talking about, and y'all know who I'm talking about. I think those guys are not buying cars right now. They're the last guys that are buying cars right now. They're the ones that are the most freaked out about the economy. They're the ones that are most freaked out about the future. They're the ones, if you are looking at rolling into retirement, you got to start saving your ducats and you got to get rid of stuff like this. Young people do not want, there's no one under 50, and I'm over 50. There's no one under 50 that wants this thing at all. This car, as cool as the 65-year-old that's driving this thing around thinks he is, that car is as invisible as a Kia to someone who's 25. It does nothing for them. Kelly, what do you think this car will bring?
Well, I'll say, first of all, I agree with everything Michael said. It's now clear just looking at more photos, even the carpets are kind of dirty. It almost looks like the only part where maybe I'll diverge a bit is saying that it will not sell, because the way this car is presented, it's as if the owner is just going to let it go and he wasn't super worried about it. Yeah. So I guess we're going to see, but look at that passenger side carpet. It just looks destroyed.
Yeah.
So let's just say, it'll get to, I'm going to give it like 45, and I think he'll let it go at 45. I mean, it just looks like the person wasn't super worried about what happens to the car. I mean, I could be wrong. We're going to see.
The whole driven hard, put away wet kind of thing comes to mind, right? I mean, it's just like...
Put it away, safety wired.
Yes, safety wired. I got a safety wire when I drive down to the beach and just get my cold... I don't know. Yeah, we're making fun of this guy. What do you guys think this... what is this thing, Cobra, will bring? Is it way too late to sell this car in the season? Or do you think it's still, people are like, I don't know, there's still another month or two. I could drive through the leaves, put my British hat on, and have yourself a good time in the fall. I actually do think that's a lovely thing to do with a car like this, by the way. Cars like this are one of the best times of year to enjoy a convertible, is basically now, especially here in Vegas, because it's still 100 and something degrees and it'll finally cool off so that you don't need air conditioning. All right, yeah, let us know what you think this thing will bring. And that is it, guys. Thank you for hanging out. I don't know if we answered the question, is it too late to sell your collector sports car on BAT? But hey, we tried. What's that? Anthony says he wants one of these. Anthony wants a Cobra. He just said it. It's official. It must be true.
Anthony bid 72,000. Anthony, if you want this one, I think you can have it and save 30 grand. I mean, come on.
I do think this car would do well with livery, by the way. I think a big old meatball, somebody call Kelly. He'll get you hooked up. Kelly, anything else exciting you want to plug before we get out of here?
I have nothing to plug, but I do want to say I watched your video on YouTube. You've already mentioned it, and it was just beautifully produced. So congratulations. It was so obvious. A lot of time went into that, and yeah, I hope.
Thank you
hope it
very
gets
much.
A lot of views.
He's talking about Porsche Road Trip on Cars Unknown there. That was the first episode of 8 all day. Yeah.
JP, he said it was beautifully produced. Who did it for you?
Wait, what now? What are we talking about?
He said your video on YouTube was beautifully produced, and I wanted to know who did it for you.
I love driving and BSing about classic
it's too
Porsche.
noisy. There it is. I'm showing a little clip of it. This is a trailer of Porsche Road Trip. You guys can check out the first episode. Like I said, there will be more coming. We've got Sir Mix-a-Lot in episodes. We got Kelly coming up in one of the. I think Kelly will be. Not in the next episode, but maybe the episode after that. That's the first Seattle episode. All kinds of great people. All our best friends are in here. We traveled all over the West Coast, and there's Lane from Driving While Awesome. Of course, there's Adam Carolla. There's the ugly guy interviewing him there, and there's all the cars in the background that are worth a lot more than the two. Yeah, there's Sir Mix-a-Lot. So check it. Of course, we've got the Professor. We've got all the usual suspects all come in, and they're part of the show. And we had a great time making it. So, yeah.
The episode on Kelly is his Riviera Blue 993 Coupe. Is that correct?
The Smurf.
I love that car.
It's actually blue turquoise. Boy, I would love to have a Riviera, but they're awfully close.
Okay, got it. Very good.
Never tell the difference.
That was a fun day. That was a really fun day. So anyway, if you guys haven't watched John's video, go watch the video. It's great if you haven't seen it yet. So
produced by JP.
I made the show. Thanks,
produced by JP.
Appreciate that. All right, guys, that's it for our show. We will see you Sunday nights. Again, thanks, Kelly. We'll be back with a whole new episode. Thanks, Nerd Herd. Bye.
Thank you.
Get those words!